All right, so next let's go, and this can be general, anything you're thinking. Let's go with person of the year. Just the person of the year for Frank Schwab this year in the NFL was?
Yeah, almost like the old Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year, right? Like this isn't MVP because, well, Lamar Jackson's winning that, and we've debated that for months and months. But I thought, who am I going to remember from this season and why? And you could go in a bunch of different directions. You go with Bill Belichick. I mean, not in a great way, but we're going to remember this maybe being the end of his career or whatnot. A lot of people applied for this, but to me, it was Christian McCaffrey. And I'll tell you why. I don't know that there's been a player who just excites me week in and week out. Like he is so good. He's jumped up my rankings as far as like greatest running backs of all time. I mentioned it briefly the other day with you that if the 49ers win a Super Bowl, maybe even if they don't, look at his numbers and some of his big seasons compared to guys we think are in the top 10 all time. Go compare him to Marshall Faulk. Go compare him to LaDainian Tomlinson. Like guys like that, like legitimately Christian McCaffrey's having that type of a career. And for him to have this type of season, led the NFL in yards from scrimmage, led the NFL in touchdowns total, awesome in the playoffs with 260 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2 games, going to the Super Bowl. It's a lot about narratives right now. It's about big trades. The 49ers are not a Super Bowl, I don't think. If they don't make this big trade for Christian McCaffrey last year, that was awesome. That's a trend that we'll see. And also the whole running back debate. What are running backs worth? Are running backs worth this, worth that? Well, Christian McCaffrey's showing you could still be a superstar at running back. You could still be the kind of guy who logs 90% of the snaps. It doesn't look like a guy who should be able to log 90% of the snaps. He's not Derrick Henry, but he does so. He's an unbelievable goal line runner. So when I think back on this season, there's a lot of things I will remember, but to me, it's Christian McCaffrey. I just think he's had a tremendous season, and he's one of those guys who I'm going to remember. Yeah, we were pretty lucky to be watching Christian McCaffrey week in and week out. I don't think we think of him in these historical terms yet, top 10, whatever, top whatever. But he is to me. He's growing to every single season with Christian McCaffrey, he moves up that list of all-time greats.
I love everything you just said, and I can't believe I feel like you're right. Now it's sort of dawning on me. We're underappreciating Christian McCaffrey to a certain extent, which is tough to say when he's so appreciated. But yeah, you're right. What we're seeing from him at this point is not only historic, but it's just year in and year out. It's alarming to me. If you, no matter what you got in return for him, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you got to look around and say, man, like we had the best player in the planet in our organization, and we let him go. We couldn't figure out how to make it work in a way that was manageable and sustainable for us. I think that's one of those things that a fan base remembers forever. Like we had Christian McCaffrey. So I'll speak to another player I think that deserves all the flowers that they got this year. And I'm going to go with Tyreek. As you were talking about Christian McCaffrey, I think one of the best stories of the year also was that we spent much of the year wondering if a wide receiver would have a shot at MVP. And that's largely because of the greatness of Tyreek Hill, who never stopped talking, but never stopped backing it up. And the number of games we saw this year where everybody knew he was getting the ball and nobody knew how to stop it is one of the most beautiful things we've seen at the wide receiver position. In a world where the wide receivers have gotten better and better throughout the course of the league, and we have so many guys that most generations would be the guy of his generation right now playing in the NFL, Tyreek might be the most uncoverable because everybody knows exactly what's coming and nobody knows how to stop it. And injury obviously took away from his season, but I can honestly tell you right now, I don't know with Tyreek, I don't know how great that offense could be without him. He is such a dynamic game changer, not just to the scoreboard, not just to the yards he puts up, but frankly to the way you have to defend everybody else because you're defending Tyreek. I just think that this year, one of the most incredible things we've ever seen was that run, particularly the first 2/3 of the season, where Tyreek was uncoverable, unstoppable, and an MVP to me. So that stands out.
Yeah, he's an example of, hey, if you don't have an elite quarterback, go get yourself an elite receiver and he can elevate the offense. Or if you do have an elite quarterback, he can make that elite quarterback even better. And the one thing that always stands out to me about Tyreek is how slow he makes everybody else look. Like these are the best athletes on the planet. And Tyreek, when he gets the ball at open field, he makes these guys look slow. That's hard to do. It is hard at any level. Like Victor Wembanyama makes everybody look short, right? Like Tyreek Hill makes everybody on the field look slow because he's so fast. He's absolutely breathtaking as a player. And I want MVPs to not be quarterbacks anymore. I'm waiting for the next non-quarterback. And Tyreek really made a run at it. I'm hoping that happens soon, but great call. I I couldn't agree more. Tyreek is a guy who he's in that category of dudes we're going to remember from this season, just being exciting week in and week out.
I love your comparison on his speed, because I feel like we forget, I keep saying this, that there are fat guys that, you could run up behind just a regular Joe Schmo on the street with a flamethrower and start chasing them. They're running for their life. They still can't outrun some of these fat guys on the team. So to see Tyreek do what he does, just outrunning people that run for a living, it's surreal.